Okay, we're going to be doing this Kerf jam that you can get individually at the hardware stores. We're going to be cutting some 2x6 treated so that we can slide this in there. It makes for a better seal than just normal metal weather stripping. And the reason we're doing our own is because it's out of treated lumber. The jams that are in there now are rotting at the bottom, which I think I've shown you before. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the first cut. We're going to come over a 1/2 inch from the edge, and then we're going to do a 1/2 inch, a 1 inch cut up. And then our next pass is we're going to do a 2-inch cut up, and then the next one's going to be a 2 3/4 inch cut, and then our last one is going to be a back 2 3 inches, 3/8 inches, and then all we're going to do is just cut the jam stop out of it. And then what we'll have left is we'll have this Kerf weather strip slide up into that slot, and that's gonna kind of sit like that. I mean, I know you can't see it, but anyway, we're fixing to run them now so you can kind of follow along in case you've got a jam problem that you need to replace to treated. When you're trying to select your treated lumber, you want to try to get some with the smallest knots possible. Now, sometimes you can find them to where they're completely clear of knots. This end here is probably going to be cut off, so I always make sure the big knots are close to the end so we don't cut it there. Normally you don't have a lot of problem with knots in the middle. Now, being some of this treated lumber is going to be wet, you really need to make 3 passes, because what's going to happen, that stuff's going to start getting hot as your saw is going through there and try to close up on you. So it's best to go ahead and make 3 cuts, even 4 cuts if you like. And one thing for sure, you need to make sure you have got an extremely sharp blade, because you're going to be going way up in there and you don't want this thing to start smoking on you, because what happens if the blade gets hot, it starts warping. If you get these, when you get your 2x6, it's going to be hard not to get one that's not warped. So try to get them as less warpage as possible. Now, if you cut these and leave them out in the weather for a while, that sun's going to really warp them, so you need to cut these and use them right away. And the same way with the edgewise, you want to make sure, this is a little bit more critical, you want to make sure that they're as straight as possible, at least through 7 feet of it, because that's what you're going to need for your jam anyway. It's about 7 feet. So anyway, we're going to get ready to cut these up. Just remember that, the knots and the warpage. But we are going to dado in the top parts for our header piece. Okay, now you could use a router, and the route end, you want to be flush with the inside of your jam, but you just want to get rid of this part right here. You can use a router, but sometimes we don't have one handy, so we're going to use a skill saw. Now, on doing this, you don't need a perfectly straight line. You're allowed about 1/8 of an inch goof on it, so don't feel like you need to be perfect. the thing that you do need to be careful about is you don't want to go start digging into your jam. Now these are the two side jams only. We don't have to do the header part. Okay, now when you get your top piece cut, of course I always like to cut them a 1/4 inch bigger than the door itself. You don't want to cut it longer. You can always spread it apart if it's too short. If it's too long, you can't squash it together. You have to take it back out and recut it. And you have to use nails. Okay, we've made the sill, but I mean there's 100 ways to make a door sill, but the one thing that's most important, especially if it overhangs a concrete foundation, is you want to put a kerf in there. See, here's the top, here's the front, because what will happen, water will weep around, and if that kerf's not there, it'll work its way to the inside of the house. So one thing that's really important, especially in this, now it doesn't matter if this is flat or it's got an angle on it like this or anything, but if it does overhang the concrete, do that. And let's say your concrete foundation starts back about right here, and then, you know, it's covering this much, but this is left over, which your sill should always overhang any kind of a foundation where you walk in. You can always add to it if it's too short on the inside where you want to put your threshold or whatever. Alright, well there we go, a little bit of that.